Okay, this is different from my usual videos. I dated I say dated in such audible quotation marks because, well, a 13-year-old dating an 18-year-old is gross and illegal. There is no justification for any adult to even want to do this. And yes, I hear you probably wondering how bad it could possibly be. Not because you condone it, like, nobody besides people like him condone this, but because 18 is a teen, right? He can't do that much damage, right? No, you are most certainly an adult at 18 and you can do so much damage at that age. The age difference and cognitive developmental differences between myself and him was so much vaster than you can even truly remember it being at that age. So much vaster than I knew at the time. So, this all started back when I was 13. I was quite the isolated kid at the time. I was getting bullied at school and had been for about a year already at that point, and my home life wasn't great either. And all in all, it was just sad and isolating. This is when I started going on DeviantArt. I was ostracized in real life, so maybe I could make friends and post art online instead. It was fun for a short while, I guess. That's when he showed up. I got one of those, is it notes? Like a DM, but as grating as sandpaper. Hated those things. Anyway, I get this note from this account saying he liked my art and how he wanted me to illustrate his story. So, at first we're already off to a great start because, wow, choosing beggar much, but at the time, as I said, all my interactions in real life were just unpleasant and dismissive. So to see a person say my art was good, well, my 13-year-old self jumped at the chance to help him. He seemed nice, so it was okay, right? What I find weird is, while writing the script, is how at no point did I, as a 13-year-old, realise already this was quite predatory. No, not the choosing beggar attitude, but the story he wanted a child to illustrate. A person he already knew was a child. Like, I don't remember too much, but I do remember it was quite not safe for work, kinky, full of weird shit. I just say this now because although it's weird and a clear red flag, it never comes up in this story because, well, again, I never realized that at the time. So, back on track, me and this guy started talking. Quite friendly, quite decent, and he spoke. Not to say I didn't too, of course I did. I was a lonely child seeking for validation and a friend. But this guy spoke so much. He was never mean, he was never rude at all. Actually, he would just say how amazingly talented I was and how cool I am. Like, yeah, he was bigging up my ego, but this is a tactic in grooming. Grooming is when someone builds a relationship, trust, and emotional connection with a child or a young person so they can manipulate, exploit, and abuse them. This is what he was doing to me. I was feeling a connection with him. He felt like the dominant adult figure in my life after a while, the type that I was so desperately in need of, but never truly had. And as a child, I did need that. I needed that support from someone who had more experience than me, and he pretended to be that person. The person I could depend on. The person I could tell all my secrets to and feel like I wouldn't be judged. The person I could feel safe around. Soon enough, though, it wasn't just innocent support anymore. Actually, it went far beyond that into a weird and upsetting path rather quickly. We moved from crappy DeviantArt messages, and instead we moved to, I think there was another social media site that is just completely obscure now or deleted. And then finally, Facebook. This kind of gave him a lot more of a grasp on me, as instead of a format closer to emails that takes some time to respond and doesn't give notifications, I was now pretty much texting him with all my devices, letting me know every time he wanted to talk, and I couldn't just let him down, right? The first problem arose with our time zones. He was from Kentucky in America, and I'm British. Ugh, it's troubling to say that he knows exactly where, due to the stupid Facebook thing. Ugh. But, anyway, time zones kind of suck, and they suck more when you feel compelled to stay up to talk to them. All night, I was up talking to this guy until about 5 or 6 a.m. and waking up again at 7:30 a.m. for school, for nights on end until I began sleeping in class and slipping into a constant state of agitation and paranoia. I would feel guilty, like I needed to, for a long time. That was not the worst, however. The worst is what was said to me those nights. He would start getting explicit with me. Very explicit. At first, it was making jokes about how I didn't know anything about sex. Like, yeah, I'm 13, of course I didn't. He would start describing stuff, at first, as just explaining what sexual things were, different words and phrases, while still cooing about how cute and innocent I was for not knowing them. Then he started talking about us, acting these things out. Started with talking about how he wanted to hold me, then how he wanted to kiss me, and other things in more and more detail every night, seeming more explicit than the last, as he expressed explicitly how my tiny and small body was so perfect for such things. I know that might be too much information, and I know it can be upsetting to know that he said that kind of stuff to me, but I just really want you to know exactly how gross this guy was. I want you to know that at no point was he just talking to a person online who just happened to be 13. He was talking to, specifically, a small girl. He knew that. At that point, I didn't know what to think. He was my friend, I thought. He would coax me into saying things back to him, and I didn't want the only person who cared about me to leave me. So I did that. I said what he wanted me to say. Until finally, the things that seemed so otherworldly and taboo became so normalized in my head that I no longer even saw these things as wrong because, well, he was saying them. The guy who cared about me. Nobody else cared about me like he did, I thought, so he must not be doing this in a malicious or weird way, right? Right? I think what pushed me into finally seeing all this as okay back then, what made me stop asking questions in my head, what made me fully commit to not telling anybody about him for his protection, was his mum was okay with it. That's that's the thing that probably hurts the most. A child psychologist, somehow, someway, knew what was going on with her son and a child. And she not only didn't fight it, but she condoned it. Okay, to a break from all the heavy shit, if you're a mother or father and your child does terrible things to other people's children, you must have something in you to tell you that this isn't worth defending, to tell you need to draw a line and tell them straight that, well, in this case, they're disgusting. Don't be like this mother who somehow listens to broken children as a job while allowing her own son to break others. Because at this point in the story, I was broken. Bullying was more and more intense, my family seemed more distant than ever, not helped by the fact this man had me twisted around his little finger, twisted to believe everyone else was against me, twisted to never tell anyone about him, twisted to say and do what he wanted me to do. Twisted to fit the mold he wanted me to fit in. It was a year later when my parents found out. When they did, it wasn't the saving that most people would expect it was when a parent finds out that their child is being groomed and abused by a predator. No, it sadly made it worse. I was shouted at. I was hit around. I was made to feel like I was a stupid fucking idiot child that doesn't deserve support because this was my fault. My fault for being manipulated by an adult. My fault for being scared to just say no and move on despite being so alone and seeing this guy for what he wanted me to see instead of what he truly was. It was my fault. I worry about telling this half of the story because I don't want people to be scared about reaching out to their parents, and I don't want people to be scared of their parents finding out by any means. But I say this to those who have had this experience like me. You can know and hopefully understand that this isn't your fault, what people do to you, like what this guy did to me. It isn't, and never will be, your fault. I also hope that for those just watching and haven't been through this, that maybe you can understand why it's hard to reach out sometimes. Why these things go on as long as they do, why groomers can get away with this behavior for so long. So that way you may reach out your hand to those suffering and understand them better. For me, however, I wasn't understood. At age 14, so this is 2013 now, I was now not only hated in my school, but it felt like my parents hated me too. I was so overly distrusted in my own house by my own family. I started becoming depressed and anxious. I would just overeat to comfort myself and try to cope with such an overwhelming amount of stress until I was laughed at by both my schoolmates and my family for being overweight. I would feel an overbearing amount of shame and guilt as I felt like such an idiot for letting this happen to me. And all this piled up until one day, a year or so later, after all these memories blurred into just a mess of emotion and guilt, with nobody really helping me understand, I found him online again, and we spoke again. This time it was different. This time, this guy, he seemed normal. With the fact my brain seemingly just blocked all the bad stuff out and replaced it all with self-hate and guilt, I believed him when he said he did nothing wrong and never meant to upset me. And we stayed friends. Nothing more, thankfully. I mean, he would express his desire to be more. But I was older now, and I had been through such turbulent relationships and life experiences that luckily that was not even anything I wanted to consider. He was my friend, that was all. Somebody I could trust with everything. And yet, he still told me not to explain how or why I knew him. So I didn't. Then, July of 2020, Daft Pina makes a video on Cosmodor, a guy who groomed a girl when he was 18 and she was 14. The ages were almost uncanny to me. I didn't quite get it at first. I started to shake a lot. I didn't really know how to even feel. Why was I feeling these weird, intense emotions? And instinctively, I felt like defending Cosmodor. Not publicly. Of course not. No way. He was gross, he was a groomer, he was a bad person, he was horrible, and yet I just wanted to say how he must be different now. Cosmo can't be the same guy he was when he was 18, right? So I spoke to my friend about this, as he's the one who to trust with such guilty emotions, right? He must have been so proud of himself, see me indirectly defending his actions without even needing to be pushed to do so. But that video started to unlock those blurry memories and start to clear them up for me. I spoke to my friend about it, and he acted like it didn't even happen. He gaslighted me. Psychologists use the term gaslighting to refer to a specific type of manipulation where the manipulator is trying to get someone else to question their own reality, memory, our perceptions. And that's what he was doing to me. For a while, I backed off. He was older, and he was right? I was abused after he spoke to me when I was a kid, so hey, maybe he's right. Maybe I was just mistaking someone else's actions as his. That seemed plausible, maybe. Until September of 2020. About less than 2 months ago. This is when I started to remember in detail everything that he said to me, everything that he did to me. But I also started to get scared. I was worried that everyone would hate me like they did when I was a kid. Not only that, but it would be even worse. I could see it. I had seen how people were spoken to who were being questioned about Cosmodor, and how they refused to speak, and how they were treated like they were protectors of abusers. I didn't want to be that. And I was so scared. I thought my boyfriend would hate me. I thought my friends would hate me. I thought I would be alone. I thought that people would see that I had just done this to myself. But I couldn't take it. I had to confront him for my own sanity, as these memories were just plaguing me and guilted me the longer I stayed silent. And of course, he would defend himself, say how he was just a child, how what he said wasn't bad, that what he did was okay. Because he was just a child. Not me, but him. I blocked him. He can't contact me, and that's how it should be. He has no platform, and from investigating that I've done, he hasn't been in any situation with another minor, so I can take comfort in that at least. But then that just left the aftermath. I was scared. I was more scared of what my friends would think, what my boyfriend would think. It was suffocating. I held my tongue. I was having panic attacks. I was freaking out because I'm not I don't do well by myself, and I had put so much dependence on that guy, that groomer, that manipulator, that now I felt alone and I didn't know what to do. But amazingly, this time around, I was supported. I was listened to. So, to you guys that did that, I love you a lot. Thank you. To everyone else watching this video, at first I didn't know if I should make it. The shame I have, the lasting effects this guy has had on how I see things, it's a lot. And the fact I let him get to me twice, it did make me feel so ashamed of myself. But I felt like I had to make this, not only so I could finally shout to the world what I have been holding in for 8 years now, but also so I could potentially reach out to those who have held these same worries. You aren't alone. People love and care about you, and you are worth so much more than the protection of creeps like these people. Don't be ashamed of yourself. It's not your fault. And don't be afraid to reach out, because somebody will reach back and help you. I will leave both information about grooming and phone numbers as well for those who need to speak to somebody about anything like this. I'll leave that all in the description. I do apologize for this more raw kind of video. I appreciate those who have watched this long, and I do truly hope that, even in some way, I have helped somebody. Thank you for listening. stay safe.